Good morning. Thank you, Cami, for the introduction, and to the Capital Chart Room for inviting me. I'm very excited to get to share a little bit of my family story and my journey of entrepreneurship, and the three things that I think are very crucial for leadership, especially in a family business. I'm going to be sharing a lot of our history. I hope that's okay with you guys. So for those of you who may not be from Texas or familiar with our brand, Fletcher's Original State Fair Corny Dogs, my grandfather, Neil Fletcher, and his brother, Carl, invented a new fried food product, the corny dog, or most people outside of Texas just call it corn dog, but we're corny dogs. In the late 1930s, my grandfather was offered an opportunity for a food booth at the state fair, and not being having any culinary experience, he was actually a fifth-generation performer in vaudeville. And so it was said that he and his brother brainstormed over a bottle of bourbon what they could bring to the fair, ultimately creating the corny dog. They began in 1942, selling them for just 15 cents a piece. It was said that nobody knew what it was when they first saw them, and that they actually had to cut them up into bite-sized samples and give them away. I can imagine with his performer history that it probably sounded like a man trying to sell you snake oil, and that once people had a bite, they were hooked and they came back. During that first year, we sold our corny dogs for 15 cents, and it was a 17-day operation. Now it's 24 days, and we sell the average 500 to 550,000, and they're a bit more than 15 cents. From a young age, I began working in the family business, like most do, starting at the bottom, watching my parents run the company. And like most kids, I did every job, from what we call sticking dogs to working the counters to practice my math skills for school, eventually making it into the office to help with hiring and paperwork and the things I really wasn't interested in. I much preferred, like my father, the hustle and bustle of being on the fairgrounds, talking to customers, dipping a few dogs, and checking the stands, eventually stepping into my role I'm in now. Over the years, I've been asked if my parents forced me to work in the family business or if I had any choice. For me, it was just something I felt I was born to be part of, and always had a knowing it would be my future. In fact, growing up, one of my neighbors loves to share the story that when I was just 8 years old and they had just moved to Texas across the street, she heard a knock on the door, and it was this 8-year-old redhead barefoot saying, "Hi, I'm Amber Fletcher with Fletcher's Corny Dogs." She said she had no idea what a Fletcher's Corny Dog, but she was intrigued. And I like to think that at just 8 years old, I already knew my calling. When I was in college, my parents encouraged me to pursue my passions and have a backup plan. So I went to Texas Women's University and got my degree in health education, not knowing that a life full of fried food was closer than I thought. Yeah. At 30 years old, my life forever changed, though, when I lost my father in 2017. The role he had been preparing me for my whole life was here, and I was ready to jump in and make waves, or so I thought. I always knew one day I would take my father's place in the business alongside my brother, but I never really pictured it without my dad. My family and I spent most of 2017 grieving and adjusting to our new life without our patriarch. It wasn't until 2019 that we started to think about what's next for the company. How much involvement did we really want? What did we want to do now that it was our turn? Did we really want to work more than once a year? We always had big dreams to grow the business, but what did that look like for a company that's already been established in a community for longer than we've even been alive? I know a lot of people outside looking in may think an 80-year-old company simply runs itself, but what we were wanting to accomplish was completely new. I was raised at the state fair, which takes a couple months out of the year to prepare for and then wind down, and most of those responsibilities at the time fell on my parents. And to be quite honest, rather than excited in those early years, I was absolutely terrified and very much still grieving my father. The most important person was gone, and now it was up to us to bring in the next generation. I felt an incredible heavy weight on my shoulders and feared that our generation would be the one to fail and destroy everything my father and grandfather built. Like Kimi mentioned, only 13% of family-owned companies even make it to the third generation, and only 3% of those continue to the fourth, and I did not want it to fail with us. I'm sure many in a family, multi-generation business experience a range of challenges during a transition of ownership. In my experience, it is crucial to have, I missed some slides. This is my father and my uncle. They were the second generation owners. This is the third generation. But it is crucial to have open and honest conversations about expectations, roles, and involvement in the company. Addressing challenges and concerns head on in hopes to prevent misunderstandings and resolve issues before they escalate. I thought grief would be our only challenge in surviving those first few years, and I didn't take into account the family dynamics and that nearly everyone had an expectation of what should have been or could have been or what if or what we should do. I quickly learned that succession planning can only go so far, that everything may seem to be mapped out in black and white, but putting into action is a whole other story, especially when you have multiple owners with different ideas and visions, not to mention different generations with different ideas on how a business should be run. We had to be honest and ask ourselves what we truly wanted and pick our battles. We had to become comfortable in those conversations about the level of involvement and commitment we really wanted to have in this company. For me, I always knew from the beginning I wanted to be in it, so it was a yes, but I was personally lacking structure and was trying to do too much and everything all at once. Those first few years, I finally understood a bit of what my parents must have, the responsibility of not only a company's success on your shoulders, but the livelihood of your family and your employees. I've always been the nostalgic one with a passion for our history and what it means to Texas, and I wanted nothing to change. Meanwhile, my brother, who I believed to be brilliant and forward-thinking and great ideas, he wanted to change what felt like everything. And then there was our mother, stuck in the middle. She had already lived through a second generation of owners and saw the effects of a family business. And while she wanted us to be successful, more than that, she wanted my brother and I to work together. There were times we didn't all agree, or perhaps my mother and brother agreed, or in a family business, no one agrees, everyone agrees. And like any relationship, whether in business or in a family business, learning to communicate is crucial, not only for the success of the company, but for its survival. And that's what we all wanted, to see it go to another 80 years. Often in a family business, we overlap roles which can create tension, especially when we're all passionate and have ideas. I wanted to have my hands in every single possible detail of the company across all roles, and let me tell you, it was exhausting. But honestly, at that time, I thought that's what ownership and entrepreneurship meant, that I was supposed to be sleeping, breathing, and eating corny dogs. Those first few years were incredibly difficult and challenging mentally, physically, emotionally, and took several more years for the family to find the balance in our roles. I owe much of the current success to the fact that we were more than willing to put aside our own desires and our egos, and we recognized that the brain was so much bigger than us. In 2019, the adventure began when we purchased 2 food trailers and began setting up all over DFW, doing pop-ups at festivals. We started catering for corporate events and parties, and interestingly, we have catered for more people with the first and last name Fletcher than I knew existed. Initially, we were unsure how the community would respond to our new venture, since for 30 years we had been primarily a once-a-year operation. We were thrilled to be doing more, and customers were ecstatic we weren't starving them between fairs anymore. Once we got busy and got to work, it finally allowed us to shine in the areas we excelled in and brought so much relief. We were incredibly fortunate that while we were given more responsibilities, it kind of naturally helped us carve out those roles. Being a millennial, for me, that meant social media and marketing. One of the first challenges was finding a way to communicate to our customers that we were still the same company that they've known and loved for the last 8 decades, despite moving to a new generation of leadership. It was very important for us to honor the legacy of our father that he built in Texas while moving the brand forward into the present. With any changes, we ask ourselves, does this honor and respect not only the past and our brand, but our customers? How do we continue to embrace the core values that have shaped the brand's identity since 1942, but use modern strategies to lead the business forward? Marketing was something we never really had to worry about, but as companies' online social media presence were growing, we wanted to make sure the next generations of Texans didn't forget us. Around that time, I was really wishing I could trade my health degree for a marketing one, but learned, just through experience, that one of the key strengths of social media is its ability to engage with a wider audience. Our company, with its strong brand and identity rooted in authentic Texas history, already had the attention of previous generations, and we aimed to assure them that nothing would change with the new generation taking ownership. But we wanted to grow and put our own spin on the company while reaching to the next generation so it can continue. And social media provides such a fun way for us to engage and connect with our customers and our audience. It's allowed us to have meaningful conversations with them and engage with our peers, understanding that social media is an escape and we can be entertaining them and use a mix of strategies to also educate them about our brand. One challenge we were certainly not expecting in our second year of growing the business came in March of 2020. When all of our hard work and dreams were essentially wiped out overnight. For a company in the event industry, a pandemic isn't exactly festival friendly. The first few months, like many of us, we sat at home watching the devastating news as lives were lost and families changed. As we were trying to navigate this unexpected time, like many others, we felt the strong urge to step in and help our community. We just weren't sure how. We got a call from the Dallas Police Department. An anonymous donor wanted to send us to go feed officers to boost morale. And despite the masks and the heavy sense of uncertainty, we saw the mood lighten as they enjoyed their corny dogs. For a brief moment, the pandemic's grip loosened, and we all shared a sense of nostalgia. Serving them and seeing their faces light up was a powerful reminder that the simple pleasures and traditions bind us together, even in the hardest of times. The story luckily made it to the news, and soon after, our catering services were being sent all over DFW to feed first responders at hospitals and fire stations and other police departments. To this day, I still keep in touch with some of them. That's just a testament to the lasting connections we forged during those times. After that, we started getting calls from all over DFW. People were sending us now to parks, parking lots, country fields, and bars, anything that could open. This experience not only brought a sense of normalcy to customers, but also highlighted the importance of community during that challenging time. We had to learn fast what worked and what didn't, and much of what we learned during COVID built the strategies that we're still using today. It was truly a year that our company experienced reinvention, and our company began and the opportunity for our family to create something new. We were trying everything to innovate, and soon we felt hopeful again that our business was going to be okay. And then we got the announcement that the state fair was not going to be opening that year for the first time in about 80 years. The silence and uncertainty fell over the family and the company again. And then quickly, a few days later, we received an email from the PR company that represents another Texas brand, Golden Chick. They said they heard about what happened and they wanted to help. They wanted to put our corny dogs in 187 of their stores. This was a moment for a third generation to sit back and think, is this something we want to do? It was completely new and unknown and a little scary. And we sat down and discussed all the pros and the cons and the what ifs, and we said, yes, we'll take the risk. And in those 8 weeks, they sold about 500,000 corny dogs during that time during the pandemic, which accelerated our brand's message that we weren't just a once-a-year treat anymore. We were finally making waves. One of our core values has always been consistency and loyalty to our customers, where their feedback is welcome and acted upon. We truly love and appreciate our customers and understand that without them, we don't have a business. That is why we strive to not only produce the best, but the same product. Because our customers are just as passionate about our corny dogs as we are, and they will let us know if something's not right. Their feedback on the quality and their experience is vital for our success. For example, in 1994, we added ketchup to our stands after years of them asking. And over the years, we've added new products. We have a vegetarian and all-beef corny dog, just trying to innovate slightly, but each one is still hand-dipped, hand-stuck the way that my grandfather did. Because in a world where everything is constantly changing, it's nice to have a product that you can always count on to be the same and to be good. It's so important for us to stay the same, especially for people like Pamela. I'll never forget her story. Pamela worked for us during the pandemic, and she told us that growing up her whole life with her father, she would go to the state fair, they'd walk through the gates, and they'd go to the feet of Big Tex, and they would get a corny dog at our Fletcher stand, and they would go to a certain bench, and they would sit down and eat. Her father has since passed, and she told me that every year she continues this tradition in honor of him, eating the same corny dog, sitting on the same bench. And I think because our taste and smell is so closely tied to memories and experiences that I believe that every time she takes a bite of a corny dog, she's transported back in time with her father. Something that I very much relate to her with and is a driving force for me. A lot of people hear our story or read it in the press, and they usually only hear the highlights like I'm talking about. We love to celebrate our wins and are proud to be entering into a 82nd year of business. And I think that there is a time to share that not everything was a success, especially for newer companies who are dealing with challenges of their own, or perhaps new family members coming in or wanting to pass it on to the next family. In the beginning, I know I would stay up at night thinking about every single comment, interaction, event we didn't get, partnership that we didn't renew, negative comments or misinformation in the press. Even customers would tell us that the only thing that made us special was that we were once a year. A business coach early on told me that we get to define our definition of failure and what it means. It can either be an overwhelming emotion, feeling of loss that just keeps you in bed and not wanting to get up, or you can simply redefine it. For me, it's just using it for data for growth, pointing me in the company into the next direction and where to go next. In 2021, I remember getting a phone call from a marketing department of a concession stand, and they said, "We want Fletchers. What do we need to do to get you here?" And I had a moment where I was like, these are the companies, these are the partnerships, these are the relationships and the customers that we need to be going after. For years, I spent trying to get this particular company or this particular partnership, and it was honestly wearing me down. And then I just had a moment of clarity where, there's companies that want us, and that's where we need to be focusing on. And especially customers. And I love to tell the story of Kelsey and her family. This is my slide on how nothing has changed in our 82 years. We have the same product because we hear people a lot of times saying something's changed, and I promise it hasn't. So I'll never forget Kelsey's story. We were catering for her wedding in October of 2020, and nobody knew we were there. It was for a wedding, for a late night snack. Not even the bride's father knew that we were there. She told me how her parents actually met at the State Fair of Texas, and the first thing that they shared together was a corny dog. Over 50 years ago, they get married. They have this tradition of going to the State Fair every year with their family, and now here we are on the night of the wedding, and her father even mentioned in the speech that night that he's a firm believer in one of the cornerstones of a great marriage is Fletcher's corny dogs. Not knowing our truck was outside waiting because Kelsey and her husband wanted to start their marriage off with the same thing that brought so much love and luck and tradition to her family. Every year they send us a Christmas card, and last year I ran into her at the fair, and she was months pregnant at the time, eating a corny dog, which I love because to me it's baby's first corny dog. I finally began to experience what my father always talked about, the special bond we have with our customers, that we get to grow up with them and watch them have children and watch their children come out to the fair. Their stories are the reason that we do what we do and why our customers are so important to us. This is why we are dedicated to providing the best in quality, customer service, experience, product, tradition. Her family's legacy is intertwined with ours, and having a customer's trust and loyalty, I mean, that drives us to excel every day and to be more for them. And we're committed to those same methods. My father always taught me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Every generation's had its own adventure, from my grandfather's retro diner to movie theaters to a stint in the grocery stores. My parents had brick and mortars in the 80s and 90s. I don't know if anyone remembers those in Dallas or Garland or Arlington. But in the last 6 years, Fletcher's Corny Dogs has moved from a 24-day operation to 12 months. We have partnerships with multiple universities. We have a permanent food truck at Clyde Warren Park, and we've catered for many notable companies such as the Dallas Mavericks, Raising Cane's, Emmett Smith Charities, and even a Jonas Brothers concert. We ship nationwide now. We've grown the company to ship nationwide to all 50 states, and in 2021, we had a record year and sold 583,000 Corny Dogs. We're a company that was born out of the Great Depression during a world war. We've faced deaths of loved ones, tragedies, bankruptcy, transitions to new generations, and a worldwide pandemic. And we're still here, and we're still family owned. My brother, mother, and I truly enjoy getting to work together and create new ideas for our customers. By honoring the past, we hope to ensure the company not only survives but thrives in an ever-changing industry, leaving a lasting legacy for future generations. And I just wanted to thank my mother, who's here, for always, being the backbone of our company and being an incredible mentor, and most importantly, for staying on and working, because she really wanted to retire, and we just keep piling on work. But thank you all so much for listening to my story. I know it was a little different, but I hope that it encourages someone who is in a family business or private owned, and perhaps you're thinking about your legacy, and to have those conversations now with your family. And I'm here to answer any questions.